All right, let's talk about one of the most famous and, let's be honest, controversial phrases out there. Thoughts become things. It sounds so simple, right? But what does it really mean? Is it magic? Is it science? How is it actually supposed to work? We're going to break it all down. So this idea was really pushed into the mainstream by author Mike Dooley. And for some people, it was this huge message of empowerment. But for a lot of others, it just sounded like a wild exaggeration. The basic idea is that your inner world, your thoughts, have a direct impact on your outer world. But the big question has always been, how? And that's really the heart of what we're digging into today. Is this a powerful truth about how reality actually works? Or is it just a kind of magical thinking that glosses over how messy and complicated life really is? We're going to look at this from all sides, from scientists, spiritual teachers, and yeah, even the skeptics. Okay, so first up, let's tackle the biggest debate right out of the gate. Does thinking create reality out of thin air, or does it just help us select from a whole field of possibilities that are already out there? Believe me, that distinction is absolutely crucial. You know, from a critical point of view, there are some pretty big holes you could poke in this idea. First off, you've got thinkers like the Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, who point out that pure, simple randomness plays a huge role in our lives, way more than we like to think. Then there's what the statistician Nassim Taleb calls survivorship bias. It's a great point. We only hear the success stories from the winners, right? We never hear from the thousands of people who believed just as hard and failed. And finally, Kahneman also talks about our tendency for what he calls post-hoc reasoning. You know, after we succeed, we draw this neat little line backwards and say, see, my thoughts caused it, all while conveniently forgetting the times it didn't work. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this clarifies what Mike Dooley was actually trying to say. See, he never meant that thinking was about absolute control, like you could just issue a command and override chance itself. He saw it more as influence, an invitation to participate with life. It's not about guaranteeing a specific outcome, but more about arranging the possibilities in front of you and nudging your direction. And neuroscientist Joe Dispenza provides this fascinating bridge here. He suggests that when our internal state, our thoughts and our feelings are aligned and coherent, we don't just erase randomness, no, but we do start to change our relationship with it. We can actually start to shift the probabilities in our favor over time. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. So the big takeaway here isn't a choice between blind faith on one side and feeling helpless to randomness on the other. The real goal is learning how to participate with life without the illusion that you're in total control. Your thoughts shape how you meet reality, what you even notice in the first place, and what you're actually ready for when opportunity knocks. Okay, so that leads us perfectly into our next piece of the puzzle. If our thoughts are about influence, not control, then we have to understand the hidden machinery that's driving all of that influence. And that comes down to two things: our beliefs and our emotions. The cell biologist Bruce Lipton has this amazing way of putting it. Our subconscious beliefs are like a computer's operating system. They just run in the background 24/7, quietly shaping everything we do, think, and feel. He argues that your life, right now, is basically a printout of these deep-seated and often totally unconscious assumptions. So how in the world do you find these hidden programs running in your own mind? Well, here are 3 really practical ways. First, just look at your results. Seriously. The recurring patterns in your relationships, your finances, your health, that's the clearest evidence of your subconscious programming. Second, as the spiritual teacher Byron says, just notice where you feel stress. That feeling of suffering, it's like a signal flare, pointing directly to a belief that needs to be questioned. And third, listen to your own language. Pay super close attention to what you say right after the word but. That's almost always where the real limiting belief is hiding. And this brings us to something that drives people crazy. If our inner world is so powerful, why does just thinking positive or repeating affirmations so often feel like it just doesn't work? It's a really common frustration. Well, the answer is layered, but here are the big reasons. First, a lot of the time an affirmation is just us negotiating with our own doubt. It's not a genuine belief. Second, as Bruce Lipton explains, if a thought doesn't have a matching emotion behind it, the subconscious basically just ignores it. It needs that feeling. Third, affirmations can become a way to just paper over what we honestly feel, which never works. And finally, and this is a deep one from Dweck's work, a new positive belief can actually threaten our sense of identity if, deep down, we feel like success would be unsafe or would alienate us from our tribe. And that, right there, is the key. It's the next crucial piece of the puzzle. If belief is the operating system, then emotion is the engine. A thought without any feeling behind it is basically inert. It's the emotional charge that gives our thoughts real momentum and power. And this is where it gets really serious. The physician Gabor Maté gives a pretty stark warning here. When we push down our emotions, especially the tough ones, they don't just vanish. They go into the shadows and run the show from our subconscious. They constrict our choices and make us recreate these same old survival patterns over and over. This is exactly why fear and worry can seem to manifest so powerfully. They carry an intense emotional charge that hijacks our focus and our behavior. So we've got thought, we've got belief, and we have emotion. But there's a vital fourth piece of this that gets missed all the time in these conversations. We have to talk about the missing link, action. This is the place where the inner world finally actually meets the outer world. Oh man, I love this quote from the author Stephen Pressfield. It just cuts right through the whole fantasy of effortless manifestation. Having a great idea, a powerful vision, that's just the invitation to the dance. The real work, the part where you actually transform, begins the second you hit resistance, and you have to find a way to push through that discomfort. But here's the thing. Not all action is created equal. You can see here the critical difference between what we could call inspired action and just forced hustle. Inspired action, even when it's hard, feels lighter somehow. It's driven by curiosity, by this need to express something. Hustle, on the other hand, just feels frantic. It's motivated by all the shoulds in your head and a desperate need for someone else to say you did a good job. And it usually just fragments your attention all over the place. You gotta love this one from Mike Dooley. It's such a great metaphor. Waiting around for signs, waiting for perfect clarity, waiting for the universe to hand you a detailed step-by-step map, all of that can just be a really sophisticated form of procrastination. You have to be in motion, even just a little bit, for life to guide you. You've got to give it something to work with. Okay, so let's bring all of these pieces together. We've taken the slogan, thoughts become things, apart, and now it's time to put it back together into a way more mature, way more powerful, and frankly more realistic framework. It's not a command you shout at the universe. It's a dance. You know, one of the hardest parts of this dance is dealing with delay. When things don't happen on our perfect little timeline, it can feel like we're failing. But here are 4 much healthier ways to reframe it. Maybe, like Mike Dooley says, it's just complex choreography happening behind the scenes that we can't see. Or as the investor Naval Ravikant might say, maybe it's leverage, building up invisibly right before a huge breakthrough. It could be a teacher, as the Buddhist nun Pema Chödrön suggests, showing us where we need more patience. Or maybe, as author Robert Greene might argue, it's simply a test to refine our intention and see if we're really committed. This quote really just nails the whole reconstructed idea perfectly. The promise isn't that life is going to become your servant. The promise is that life is a creative partner. It will respond, but only when you participate. When you show up with honesty about what you believe, with patience for the timing, and with a real curiosity about the outcome. And this is really the final, humbling takeaway. The goal of this whole process, it isn't to become some master of the universe, bending reality to your will. It's actually about remembering that you are a part of it, a powerful, co-creative participant in a dance that is so much bigger than you are. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. The focus shifts away from passive wishing and lands squarely on active engagement. It's no longer about whether thoughts become things is a real thing. The real question is much more personal. Are you willing to do the inner work to align your thoughts, emotions, and actions? Are you willing to get on the dance floor and actually participate?